In the world of mainstream compact sedans, Kia has been playing in this space for well over 30 years. It all started out with the Cephia back in the early 1990s, which later turned into the Spectra in the 2000s, but Kia has been selling a vehicle called the Forte in America since 2009. Well, for 2025, the Forte is dead, being replaced, of course, by this model here. This is the brand new 2025 Kia K4, a stylish premium entry-level sedan that, as you can see, gives us a lot of K5 and Stinger vibes. It essentially gives us the most interior space in the segment, and it also has an available turbo engine under the hood. Now, as you can see, today we're actually out here in beautiful Austin, Texas to finally get behind the wheel of this 2025 K4 GT line turbo. And the big question I want answered, has Kia managed to raise the bar yet again in the mainstream compact segment? Stay tuned to find out. So here we are, finally getting a chance to get behind the wheel of the all-new Kia K4. As you guys know, K4 is a new nameplate here in the US, and it kind of more closely aligns with Kia's next generation of vehicles because, as you guys know, there's the K5, which is the mid-size sedan. I kind of actually missed the old Forte name, but before we start talking about the new styling of this vehicle, let's go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys what's powering this thing. Now, if you guys are familiar with the powertrains in the old Forte, this is kind of where things are a little bit carryover. Kia made a couple of small updates, but most versions of the new K4 are going to ship with a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder that makes 147 horsepower. This, however, is the unique powertrain. It's only available on the GT line in the turbo application. It's a 1.6-liter gasoline direct injection turbocharged 4-cylinder that makes 190 horsepower and 195 foot-pounds of torque. That's actually a reduction of about 11 horsepower compared to the old Kia Forte GT. Kia says that the horsepower went down because it's now rated as a super ultra low emissions vehicle, so the emissions portion made the horsepower go down. It all goes out through a new 8-speed automatic transmission. So the manual and the dual clutch has now been replaced by that new 8-speed automatic. All K4s are only front-wheel drive, so there's no all-wheel drive variant, there's no hybrid variant, which is actually a surprising omission considering most vehicles in the segment offer an electrified powertrain. Now, fuel economy for this powertrain combination is rated at 26 in the city, 36 on the highway, about 29 combined. This has a 12.5-gallon fuel tank, so you're looking at just under 400 miles of range on regular gas, thankfully. Kia doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time. The last GT Forte that we tested was in the mid 6.5 second range. I suspect this model is going to be slower, and that's because this vehicle is actually heavier. This is built on the new K3 architecture, and it's also significantly larger. This model, as it sits, weighs in at around 3,300 pounds, so it's around 150 pounds heavier versus the previous generation Forte GT. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here and talk about the exterior styling, which, as you can see, it's held up with a prop rod, and this is also a pretty heavy hood. But closing the hood, let's go ahead and talk about what Kia has done here with the exterior design. Now, first of all, if you guys are familiar with their new design language, you're going to find a lot of styling touches here that will remind you of cars like the EV9 or the EV6. You can see it has the newest interpretation of their Tiger Nose grille. The GT line kind of gets its own unique front fascia with the new Kia logo. This color is called Morning Haze, which is kind of like a greenish gray color. It flows nicely with the gloss black accents, the slightly larger air intake openings. I also like the kind of glossy gray that you get at the front splitter. These headlights, you can see they are full LEDs. However, if you guys want the GT line turbo package, you basically are going to get a unique headlight where it has the small cube projections. You can see there's also an LED daytime running lamp, LED turn signals, LED low and high beams, and you can also get LED fog lights. This is the only trim of the K4 to actually get the LED fogs. All the other trims of the K4 will not get fog lights. This trim also includes these nicely integrated front and rear parking sensors, and you can also get a front camera system for a full surround view 360 camera. These headlights also have an amber illuminated daytime running lamp and borrow some inspiration from the flagship EV9, but I also noticed just how much wider and lower this vehicle is. And that's because Kia was able to actually make this vehicle around 3 inches, nearly 3 inches wider, 2 inches wider versus the old Forte. And that again gives it that low and wide proportion that kind of makes it look a little bit more like a K5 or perhaps even the Stinger, which the Stinger was one of my favorite sporty sedans from Kia. Now, moving around the side profile, being built on the new K3 architecture, this shares a platform, of course, with the Hyundai Elantra, which was introduced back in 2020. And Kia essentially has given this thing a growth spur, a pretty big growth spur, because at 185.4 inches long in the length, this is nearly 3 inches wider or longer than the old Forte. Its wheelbase is about an inch longer at 107.1. It's about a half an inch lower. So again, it looks a lot more like a K5 to me, a mid-sized car and its dimensions are basically what mid-size cars were about 20 years ago. So it's a big vehicle. Now you can see the wheels. These are the unique wheels that you get with the turbo engine. It's an all glossy black 18-inch wheel, which is actually the same design spoke as the GT line without the turbo, but again, it has that all gloss black look. You have a 12-inch rotor at the front, a slightly smaller 11-inch rotor at the back. You have an all-independent suspension as well. The GT lines all give you the multi-link independent suspension as opposed to the lower trims, which have a semi-independent twist beam. I also really like the gloss black for the wheel arch trim that kind of goes along the side profile of the vehicle. And overall, in the morning haze color, as you can see, it's a really stylish, it's a really attractive sedan. The mirrors, as you can see, are gloss black with integrated turn signals. Remember, there's full 360 camera system around this car. I also appreciate how there's gloss black around the window trim. And you can see the GT line with the turbo engine comes standard with the ultra-wide panoramic style sunroof, which has a retractable shade. This also does open up to vent air. You typically don't find a panoramic style sunroof in this segment. And again, it shows that Kia wants this vehicle to be a lot more premium than a lot of its competitors. Now, looking at the vehicle from this angle here, it has a lot of that sportback design theme, which kind of reminds me again of the Kia Stinger, but this is a traditional sedan. There is a hatchback version coming for 2026. Kia says that the hatchback, you can expect that at the end of 2025. I'll be looking forward to getting my hands on that vehicle. And then looking at the rear, you can see the design also kind of goes with the newer trend of a lot of Kia vehicles with this interesting look for the taillights, which also have like this kind of swoop down look to it. It really showcases the extra width of this car. Looks good, of course, with the Kia logo. The rear bumper, as you can see, is a little bit sportier and more aggressive on the GT line. And this is also the only trim with the turbo engine to get the full LED taillight design. The lower trims will have kind of like a partial combination LED with incandescent. Your reverse lights down here. The one thing I'm noticing Kia did get rid of, however, are the Sporty dual outlet exhaust system. You can see they are now hidden underneath the bumper, which a lot of vehicles are kind of going to that trend. I personally miss the way the Sport dual exhaust system looked on the GT from the Forte, but again, it's kind of going with the newer design theme here. The trunk capacity, you can see there's a button here, you can push that. It opens up the conventional trunk, and even though this vehicle is bigger on the outside, it actually did get a little bit smaller in terms of the cargo capacity. So Kia says this model has around 14.6 cubic feet of storage space. That's around a half a cubic feet less versus the old Forte. You can see there are hinges that crush your cargo. Those seats do fold down in a 60-40 manner. And as you can see, we have our stuff in here, but if you look underneath here, there is actually a temporary spare tire at least, so you don't have to deal with a fix-a-flat kit. Keep in mind, if you guys are looking for more space, the hatchback version will be coming at the end of next year. So on the outside, Kia did an amazing job with the style of the new K4, but on the interior, this is where the company also brought a really big premium vibe, and they also gave us a ton of interior space. Now, this model that we're showing you is the GT line Turbo. It basically has the nicest interior that you can find in the Kia K4 family. You can see the seats. These are the Syntex black and white two-tone leatherette seats. So this is a faux leather, but I have to say, for a fake leather, they feel real. They're also really comfortable. These seats are also heated and ventilated. That's part of a technology package that you can get. You can also get the heat and ventilation on the GT line without the turbo engine. The EX trim, I believe, will include a heated seat. You can see this driver's seat is a 10-way power adjustment, which is nice. It also comes with a 2-person memory. The passenger seat, however, is just a 6-way manual seat. But let's go ahead and hop inside. You can see it's a low sedan, so you're going to have to kind of fall into the vehicle a little bit. As I close the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk, so that again gives you that impression that you're driving a much more expensive vehicle. Now here's the key fob for the car. You can see this is Kia's new detonator style key. I really love the way the key looks with this kind of flat gray material that they have. They have the buttons to the side here with your typical lock, unlock, open for the trunk, and then you can see a panic function. There's also a remote start on this side. And then this vehicle, if you guys go for this high trim, you can actually kind of have access to their digital key 2.0 system where you can use your smartphone as a key. If you guys are an owner of the car, you can also use the app to kind of ping the vehicle to remote start it from your phone, which is all nice. If you want to start it up, start stop button is located down here by the shifter. And when you turn the vehicle on, you can see this car is not a hybrid or a mild hybrid. So it has a traditional starter noise. When you actually start the vehicle up, you have the newer Kia chime. And then all versions of the K4 will essentially come with the bigger 12.3-inch display. So this runs on their new CNCC software, which now includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. You can see we've got a smartphone connected here. This is Nick's phone from Alex on Autos, or from Auto Buyer's Guide, I'm sorry. This is, again, the CarPlay that's connected. It looks a lot better, and I love the fact that this is a 12.3 12.3-inch display. So this is actually the biggest display that you're going to find in the compact segment. Compared to the Elantra, this is also around 2 inches larger and about 2 inches larger than the previous Kia K4. And then if you guys go for the EX trims and up, you'll also get the fully digital 12.3-inch instrument cluster, and you'll also get a 5-inch display over here that allows you to adjust the climate control function. You've got dual zone climate control in this vehicle. So Kia says between these screens here, there's nearly 30 inches of total screen real estate, which again makes this thing feel a lot more expensive. It's why a lot of people really like what Kia has done with their interiors. You can see the door panel has a soft touch injection molded plastic here with some more of that Syntex, some white trim over here. The windows are one touch up down for just the front windows. The rears are not one touch. I was kind of hoping Kia would have given you one touch for all, considering the price point of this car. You also get the heated and cooled seats, which the cooling function works really well, especially here in Texas where it's a little bit warm still, even though we're in early December. The steering wheel, I also really like the design. It's got the new Kia logo here off to the side. I also like the two-tone look with the wheel. You have paddles to control the 8-speed automatic. You also have a manual tilt and telescoping function. It offers a good amount of adjustability and range to kind of get comfortable with this vehicle. You have some of the newer stock and switch gear in this car, and then this vehicle does not offer a heads-up display. Most vehicles in the segment don't, so I'm not surprised that Kia doesn't offer that feature. The rest of the dashboard you can see has a soft touch injection molded plastic here, although it could be a little bit nicer padded, but it has a really nice look to it. I also like this kind of interesting texture for this grayish plastic with the kind of alloy look along the dash, and then there's more of this glossy gray down here with this kind of continuous vent look. You have some nice hard buttons here, which Kia does a really good job of merging in buttons with actual digital buttons. There's an actual volume knob here. You've got your dual zone climate control here, or if you don't want to use the touchscreen, you can use this little knob over here, which is nice. If I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's the full top-down 360 camera. That surround view is part of the technology package. You can see it includes cross traffic, it includes trajectory, it includes parking sensors. So that quality and resolution you can see is really unexpected. You can also even do this like full 360 perimeter scan where it even shows the car around you. This is stuff that you expect from a German luxury brand. So it's great to see Kia is including it here on their entry-level sedan, which I think is a huge plus. Down here over in the center console area, you can see there's a wireless phone charging pad that's included on the higher trims. This controls the 8-speed auto. It's a surprising traditional shifter, which I think people are going to really appreciate. There's also a manual mode down here, and again, it's just really easy to use. Big cup holder storage area over here, and I also appreciate how Kia resisted the fact to use gloss black, piano black here. So this is going to be nice to not show fingerprints and scratches. This is going to be a little bit more durable. The cup holders, you can see, you can kind of adjust this little center console storage area here. We can kind of hide this little area to kind of make a big storage cubby, and then you can push that, it opens up the cup holder there. The center console you can see is nice and padded. It's also pretty deep. I was able to fit some of my camera gear in here. It's a relatively deep storage area. Your 2 USB charging ports are going to be located over there, and then your drive mode selector is actually located here on the steering wheel. So if I push that, there's basically only 2 drive modes in this vehicle, normal and sport. I was not expecting Kia to kind of keep it so simple, but it's kind of good for those of you who don't need all that additional customization. Above me you can see that ultra wide sunroof lets in some nice light. You can also open it up to actually tilt and vent air, which is great. There's also a power retractable shade. There's a woven material here for the headliner. Surprisingly, this vehicle is missing like a digital camera mirror or an auto dimming rearview mirror. I'm surprised it doesn't include it at this trim, but Kia probably offers it as an accessory from the dealership. And then coming back down here, the glove box you can see is actually pretty big. It's a bin style. It's damped but not lined with felt. It offers a good amount of additional storage. So storage space in this car for a compact car is actually quite good. The technology is also good. If you guys are an audiophile, this is the only trim to give you the 8-speaker Harman Kardon stereo system, which also sounds decent as well. Much better versus some of the JBL systems I've heard from Toyota and the Corolla models. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area. I want to show you guys what that space is like, because Kia is quite proud of the fact that this vehicle's increased size results in best-in-class rear seat legroom. In fact, this vehicle, even with my driving position here, offers around 38 inches of legroom. 38 inches is around 2.5 inches more versus the old K4, or the old Forte. This actually has more rear seat legroom than the K5, their mid-size sedan, which that vehicle has like 35 inches of legroom. So you can see at 5'7", I'm not the tallest, but there's good foot space underneath here. I can kind of get back here and easily cross my legs and get comfortable. Material quality back here, however, is downgraded. It's all hard touch plastic down here. It's padded here where you'd rest your elbow, which is nice. The center console area here, or the center area here, has a small hump that intrudes on the middle passenger. You do get rear seat air vents, but only on this trim. If you guys go for any other trim, you won't have the rear seat air vents. You will have the 2 USB-C charging ports, a little open storage area over here. And then if you look over here, you fold this down, this armrest, you can see there's cup holders and headroom space. Even though the vehicle is a little bit lower, still is pretty good. There's kind of like a little carve out here because the sunroof does take up space. But overall, if you guys are looking to use this as a family car, the K4 definitely has one of the largest back seats you're going to find in the segment. So welcome to the driving scene for the all-new Kia K4, and as you can see, I am joined by my good friend Nick here. You guys may recognize him from Auto Buyer's Guide, also known as Alex on Autos. I'm going to forever call him by that channeling because that's how I met Alex.
And that's fair. That's okay.
Even though he's rebranded himself. But anyways, we are in the GT line with the turbo engine. So we have the 1.6 liter with about 190 horsepower hooked up to a new 8-speed automatic transmission. Nick, you haven't had a chance to drive, or you never drove the old Forte, if I remember correctly, right?
No, I don't remember. I think I've driven a Forte a long time ago.
Okay.
Many generations ago.
Yep.
And I don't really have a ton of experience in either one of these drivetrains. Now, I have driven the Elantra N in a manual transmission.
Which is like not good to start off driving that.
No, but that was also years ago. So
Yep.
I don't really have a huge base to stand on. I still have yet to get behind the wheel. And so this is really how I am feeling this car from the passenger seat, which actually gives a good feel on how a vehicle drives for a different outlook on how it is.
Yeah, so the GT line that we're driving is the, I guess, more enthusiast-oriented choice because this comes standard with the multi-link independent rear suspension, which all the other ones will have the twist beam at the back. Basically, it's going to help improve the handling of this car. But I have it in sport mode now. This is one of the big changes is the new 8-speed automatic. So it's a torque converter automatic as opposed to the dual clutch. I remember driving the dual clutch in the older Forte, and it was not a good dual clutch. It kind of reminded me of the old Ford Focus power shift transmissions. I don't know if you ever driven one of those.
I haven't, no.
Okay, so they were a little stumbly, they were a little laggy. So Kia went for this 8-speed torque converter because they wanted it to be smoother, more refined, better drivability, and just more refinement and premium feel. And I have to say, it's good. It's a little bit slower to shift, I'm noticing. The dual clutch was a little faster. And this turbo engine, I also noticed, is still a little peaky. What do you think of the sound of the engine, Nick?
It sounds okay. It definitely sounds like it's revving out pretty hard just to achieve pretty mediocre pulling power.
Yeah, I mean, it's 195 foot-pounds of torque. It has good mid-range grunt, but
yeah, the mid-range does feel pretty good, I do have to say.
Yeah, because that's kind of the thing about a lot of these vehicles in this segment. They don't have much torque. I mean, we haven't had a chance to hop into the 2-liter. If we have time, I may show you guys a quick little clip of the 2-liter, but that uses a CVT, which is definitely not for enthusiasts, but it's good for fuel efficiency. That's the model that's going to get up to 40 mpg. This model gets around 29 mpg. Right now, we can't really test that because we've been
29 combined.
Combined, yes.
Yeah.
We can't really test that now because we've been kind of on this shorter loop. But I mean, first impressions are good. I mean, if you guys are coming from, an older compact car, these vehicles have just gotten so smooth. They've gotten so refined. The ride quality is good in this car. It's a little on the firmer side. What do you think of it? Is it a little too firm or is it just right?
It's a little firm. Now, on all of the GT lines, you are going to get the 18-inch wheels with the acoustic tires.
Yes, that's what they mentioned.
Yeah, the acoustic tires. And I actually don't find it to really have much effect. Now, I haven't driven the non-acoustic tires, but the suspension is a little bit stiff, and I also hear the tires. I hear them quite a bit, and that's kind of concerning.
Yeah, there's a good amount of road noise coming in here, and again, they are a 235 by 45 width tire, so it's a little bit bigger. I mean, I think most people will probably be happier with the smaller 17-inch wheels, but this is good for the look, for the handling dynamics. I have to say, though, this car looks really sporty on the outside, and Nick, I know you haven't had a chance to drive it yet. I would have to say that it doesn't quite match the sporty look when you start pushing around some corners. It feels a little bit, not like cumbersome, just it could use a little more, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it's tough too because it's kind of hiding in the shadows of the K5. The K5 is in a bigger market. The market has more horsepower, and this is fairly comparable to what the market has to offer in terms of horsepower. It's a little bit less, but in terms of horsepower and fuel economy, it's right there with the other competitors. It just doesn't feel as sporty. It doesn't feel as jumpy as things even like the Civic. It doesn't feel as...
Right, because I mean, for this kind of price point, you could compare this to like a Civic Si, a Volkswagen GLI even, and that has more power than this car. And then of course there's also the Hyundai Elantra N line, which is the cousin for this vehicle, a little bit less expensive, a little bit more power, and the Hyundai still has the dual clutch. There's just something about this car, like for example, if you guys have driven the old Forte GT, that actually had a sport exhaust at the back, which I remember that thing, it actually sounded like a sport compact. It made some pops and crackles from the exhaust. It just sounded a little bit more throaty. This is definitely more muted. So clearly Kia is trying to target a more, I guess, mature buyer. They want somebody who's like looking for a commuter car, and I guess they nailed it. But if you guys are looking for fun, I am noticing they've kind of neutered it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's kind of the person that they're catering this vehicle towards. A first-time buyer, a Gen Z, Gen Y, or Gen X or Gen Z. What, I can't remember.
I think
exactly
they said Gen Y or Gen Z, which is technically us.
Right.
Because I think you're Gen Z and I'm Gen Y. So.
Yeah, exactly. And also they're trying to cater it towards someone that wants a second vehicle, a commuter. Like if you have your fun car and you need a commuter, this is the perfect vehicle for you. So it's not, as much as it is a performance-oriented trim, it's not necessarily a performance-oriented vehicle, if that makes sense.
Correct, and that kind of leaves room for Kia to actually do a full GT version of the car like they did on the Forte, which I'm kind of hoping they do because it would kind of expand the, appeal of this car. A hybrid would also significantly expand the appeal, and as well as all-wheel drive. We don't have all-wheel drive available in this vehicle, which I think is kind of a little bit of a mistake. I think Kia should have offered a hybrid or potentially an all-wheel drive variant, just to offer those different choices, because that's kind of what Honda offers, what Toyota offers, especially with the Corolla. So there's a lot of different choices in this segment.
Yeah, they might be, like you said, they might be holding off until they can offer a hybrid with all-wheel drive or a actual GT line, but they kind of made it seem like there wasn't going to be a GT line.
Right.
They kind of downplayed that a little bit, but every time we go to these press trips, it seems like they downplay, and then 6 months later they come out with the vehicle that they downplayed. So you never know with these guys, but yeah, it'd be cool to get a GT line or even an all-wheel drive variant. Because for me, living in the 0 to 60, brake traction?
It did actually, and it actually hesitated to shift there. And I wasn't able to quarter 0 to 60 because, of course, my timer here is out of memory. I need to reset it and delete all the runs I've done this thing. But I would estimate probably just over 7 seconds, 0 to 60.
That was interesting. It didn't feel like it was really putting that much power down, and then it cut off like traction.
There was a little bit of turbo lag, was what I noticed. And then, it didn't want to shift for some reason. Not sure what happened there. If we get an opportunity to do a run later on, I may try it again. But in terms of, the engine definitely doesn't really have much until about 3,000 RPM. That's when the turbo kind of kicks in. So it is nice how Kia offers this turbo. I don't love the sound of it, and I do think that a hybrid powertrain probably is something more people are looking for in this space, because, 29 mpg combined is good, but you can also get like a Civic or a Corolla that gets 50 mpg for the same price, and that's a little too hard to ignore. All right, so I managed to clear my 0 to 60 timer out, and luck behold, we have a straight road in front of us with a red light. So when the light turns green, Nick, we're gonna do a quick 0 to 60 and see what we can get. What do you think it's gonna get?
Well, I'm gonna say a 7.5.
Okay.
That might be a little deep. That might be a little too deep into the sevens, but
hopefully it's not that slow, but we'll see. I'll turn off
if the traction control kicks in like it did, then
it did. Yeah, because it was definitely cutting the power. So I turned off the traction and stability control. I'm not going to brake torque it. We're just going to floor it and see what we can get. All right, let's see.
Skirted the tires a little bit.
7.25 seconds there. So about what I expected.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
It's not terrible, and we were pretty much on a perfectly level surface there. Compared to the last Forte GT that I think I tested a few years ago, it was like 6.7, so it's a little slower, which doesn't surprise me. This 8-speed does not shift as fast, and we also are carrying around about 200 pounds of additional weight. Now, if you guys remember the previous generation Kia Forte, that was actually a pretty strong selling vehicle for Kia. It really has increased a lot in sales, and it really shows you that people still want to buy a compact sedan like this. Kia actually says that it accounts for nearly 20% of the new car market, and that all has to do, of course, with affordability. So when it came time for Kia to replace the Forte with the K4, the company essentially wanted to keep things still stylish, keep things still premium, but they also wanted to elevate this car. And after spending the day driving this new K4, I have to say the company did a really good job at achieving that goal. I mean, if you look at the Forte, Kia sold a little over 123,000 units in the US last year. It was essentially tying the Elantra for sales. Obviously, it's about half the sales that Toyota does for a Corolla or that Honda does for a Civic, but it really shows you that people still want a vehicle like this. Now, the K4, as you can see, looks a lot more sophisticated than the old Forte. It's a lot longer, it's a lot lower, it's a lot wider, and it really makes you think that you bought a K5, a mid-size sedan. And that really shows in the interior. The back seat is huge. The interior tech is also significantly improved. I love the fact that you get that 12.3-inch display as standard with the wireless Apple CarPlay functionality. This turbo engine in this model here is definitely the more enthusiast-oriented choice. However, if you guys are replacing the old Forte GT, perhaps you have that model with the 6-speed manual, this vehicle definitely doesn't give you the same vibe. The engine doesn't have the same kind of snarl from the Sport exhaust system from the Forte GT. The fact that you don't get it with a manual anymore, and that 8-speed auto, while it is a smoother, more refined transmission, it also is a little bit less fun. So that part kind of makes me sad as an enthusiast, and it kind of leaves room for Kia to actually do a full-on GT model again. Only time will tell. Kia says that they are ready to add that should the market demand for it. I'll have to wait until I get one back home to do a real proper 0 to 60 test where we can see what we can actually get on our usual testing road, and we'll also be able to test the fuel economy. But as you guys heard me say earlier, around 29 mpg is actually around 1 mpg less versus the old GT Forte, which had that dual clutch. The dual clutch wasn't the smoothest transmission, so that's kind of where Kia came in and put this 8-speed auto to make it more refined. Now, if you guys are looking to get your hands on the all-new Kia K4, this has been on sale for a few months in the lower LX, LXS, or EX trim with the base 2-liter. However, the GT line trims are just now rolling into showrooms. Basically, Kia says they've been in Kia dealers since for the past week or so, and base pricing for this model is really affordable. Kia says you can get to a base LX for around $21,990. So under 22 grand is an absolute steal in today's marketplace. It is around $2,000 more versus the old Forte that started at under $20,000, but there's a lot more technology and features and upscale qualities of this car and space to kind of justify that increase in price. Now, if you guys want to go to the LXS trim, that's $1,000 extra. The EX trim is probably the sweet spot. That's around $24,000. That includes all the nicer touches that you get with that higher trim. But if you want to go to the GT line, this will cost you at least $25,000. That's, of course, before you add features like the sunroof package or the premium package for an extra $2,000. This turbo that I'm showing you here is the most expensive way to get into the K4. It starts at around $28,000, which is actually around $500 or $700 cheaper versus this car's sister vehicle, the Hyundai Elantra N line. Now, the Hyundai does offer 11 more horsepower and it offers that dual clutch, but this vehicle is definitely a lot more refined. It's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more practical. And when you add in the destination charge and the technology package that my test car here has, you're looking at an as-tested price of around $31,500. $31,500 is still very affordable. It's actually going to be a couple grand cheaper than the most expensive version of the Honda Civic. This is a little bit more expensive than a Toyota Corolla. It's also a little bit cheaper than a Mazda 3. But I'd argue that Kia has essentially offered a vehicle that kind of is the sweet spot in terms of technology, in terms of practicality, in terms of design. I'm just not entirely sure I'm sold on this turbocharged engine. I would really like to see Kia do a hybrid powertrain. I think that would improve the fuel efficiency and improve the acceleration. But if you guys are looking for something more traditional that feels a lot more like a mid-size car, you should definitely put the new K4 at the very top of your list. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 Kia K4 GT Line Turbo. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.